right, left, guys, right, left, 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 right, left, 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 right, left. One. On behalf of the 63 organizations comprising the Allied Organization for Civil Rights, it's a pleasure to welcome you to the 50th anniversary of the March on Frankfort. Today, we come not only to commemorate, but to also advocate for civil rights and equal access to the ballot. As we come to order, I am going to ask that the Reverend C.B. Akins, moderator of the General Association of Baptists in Kentucky and pastor of First Baptist Church, Bracktown, if he would come forward and give us our invocation. Reverend Akins.
Let us pray. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, Thou who hast brought us thus far on our way, Thou who hast by Thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in Your path, we pray. We are grateful today, God, for valiant women and men who put their very lives on the line in sacrificial efforts to secure that which is constitutionally promised to all Americans, certain rights that cannot be taken or given away. Yet history records that placidly ignoble persons have endeavored to do just that, and currently proposed legislation does not mitigate against the same. So we need You today, God, as much as our ancestors did 50 years ago. We need You to be our strength in moments of weakness. We need You to give us understanding in times of confusion. We need You to do again what You did back then. Raise up a mighty army of people of all colors, political parties, and socioeconomic status, who have a kindred spirit, who long for justice to roll down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. Don't let us march today, God, and become apathetic tomorrow, but help us to stay vigilant against the incessant insensitivity of the greedy and to speak boldly on behalf of the voiceless needy. May some young people be inspired today by what they see and hear, and may he or she catch the falling mantle of some aged warrior and carry on the struggle long after we are gone. Give our current leaders the courage to do what is right because it's right, regardless of the political fallout. Be with us, God, today and forever, and we will give You praise, honor, and glory in all that we do. As I acknowledge that You are God of all, I also acknowledge that You are known by many names from a variety of perspectives. So I ask that You hear each prayer offered here today, even as I pray in my ancestral tradition. In the name of Jesus, amen. Amen.
We're now going to ask that if we will all stand as Pat Masterson comes forward to lead us and lift every voice and sing. And for those of you who may not know the words, it is on page 14 in your program.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the darkness has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died, yet with a steady beat have not our weary feet come to the place for which our fathers sighed. We have come over a way that with tears has been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughter. Out of the gloomy past till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright star is cast. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, Thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, Thou who hast by Thy might led us into the light. Keep us forever in the path, we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met Thee. Lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget Thee. Shadowed beneath Thy hand, may we forever stand true to He did good.
Yeah. I had my
Peter.
He's
had practice.
Last Oh, Lord.
No, what they were talking about. Was that what that was?
You're welcome.
It is a pleasure to introduce the mayor of Frankfort. The mayor, the city administration they've gone out of their way to make this occasion to be accessible and to move smoothly. They have been most cooperative. And I will say, Mr. Mayor, what a difference 50 years make. We thank you and we appreciate you. So we're going to ask the Honorable Bill May, Mayor of Frankfort, to come forward to welcome us to our capital city and to introduce the Governor of the Commonwealth of Kentucky, Mayor May.
Thank you, Mr. Cunningham, for all you've done for this historic occasion and for your past efforts. I'm very honored to be in the presence of so many folks that have pioneered the way for so many. We're so pleased to be able to host you. And Governor, it's always nice to have you at these events. Being the mayor of the capital city, we have the governor who lives right here at the governor's mansion and his family, who have been great friends to Frankfort from their time in the Attorney General's office as Lieutenant Governor and now as Governor. To all of our legislative members, we're so pleased to be able to host them and be their home away from home and make them feel comfortable when they're here with us. They make great sacrifices to be away from their families for 60 legislative days, and they do so much for us. I want to give a special thanks to all of our city staff who worked so tirelessly to make this event come together with the allied organization of civil rights. There's such a great partnership and cooperation that I haven't seen before. And as a special welcome to all the visitors from Kentucky and from outside of Kentucky, we give you a special welcome. And those that did not get a welcome 50 years ago, I'm here today to say we love you and we welcome you into your capital city. And I have one of our city commissioners here today. Commissioner Tommy Haynes is here on the dais with us, and he has provided strong leadership with our commission in passing a fairness ordinance, so we were very happy to be a community of fairness and welcome all folks to our capital city. Well, and also to give special thanks to our state police and state partners. They've done a tremendous job to be with us as well. You know, Governor Beshear has been a long-time friend of Frankfort, but he's also been a leader and a friend to all in Kentucky, and his commitment to opportunity and through investments in quality education has not gone unnoticed. We've seen rises in our schools and education levels, and that helps us compete on a global economy. He's made his state government more diverse than ever before, and he's made support for voting easier. As I said, he's a longtime friend to Frankfort, and I'd like to welcome our Governor, Stephen L. Beshear.
Thank you. Thank you very much. What an historic day. On behalf of the Commonwealth of Kentucky and its 4.3 million citizens, I'm honored to welcome you to the 50th anniversary commemoration of the March on Frankfort. We're proud to host this march right here in our capital city, just as we're proud that a half a century ago, on this very day, and on this very spot, Dr. King, baseball pioneer Jackie Robinson, and many civil rights and faith leaders came here to make their mark on history. Georgia Davis Powers reminded me that that day 50 years ago was a cold one, and it was wet, and it was miserable. What a difference 50 years make. The Lord is sure shining down on us today. But the 10,000 people who walked these streets then were warmed by a fiery passion, by a burning need to change Kentucky laws that permitted segregation in theaters, restaurants, stores, offices, and other public facilities. Who were these people? Well, obviously, the leaders are well known. But those 10,000 people were students, ministers, housewives, factory workers, state workers, and even one of Governor Breathitt's 15-year-old daughters. They heard Dr. King condemn segregation as a disease of the body politic. And they listened to the folk group, Peter, Paul, and Mary, sing songs of rebellion and togetherness. That public outcry helped bolster support for the enactment later that year of the United States Civil Rights Act of 1964. And it also built momentum for Kentucky to become the first state in the South to pass a civil rights law. The Kentucky Civil Rights Act of 1966 prohibited discrimination in employment, public accommodations based on race, national origin, color, and religion. And it gave the Kentucky Commission on Human Rights statewide enforcement authority over civil rights violations. 2 years later, Kentucky also became the first southern state to enact a fair housing law that banned discrimination on those grounds. Not only do we need to thank those 10,000 that day, but we also ought to acknowledge the courage that Governor Bert T. Combs and Governor Ned Breathitt showed to finally push through and sign those acts which made Kentucky stand out so above all of the rest of the South. Now Kentucky continues to lead the way in the South. Here in 2014, we're pushing forward at the first southern state to embrace federal reform that makes affordable health care for the first time ever available to each and every one of our citizens. Already over 260,000 Kentuckians have signed up for affordable health coverage. And we're not going to stop until we find all 640,000 of them that need this health care coverage. But while we celebrate our progress in the area of civil rights, we recognize that we must still work to end poverty, to improve children's health. We also must raise awareness of the need to improve voter access for all of our citizens. Because nothing is more fundamental to our democratic society than voter participation. And my friends, it is time. It is time for this legislature to pass House Bill 70. House Bill 70 is sponsored by our Representative Jesse Crenshaw, who you will hear from in a moment. It is strongly supported by this House leadership and by the House of Representatives. And we need to bring pressure to bear to make sure that the Senate steps up and does the right thing. It's time to restore voting rights to former felons who have served their term and paid their debt to society. I want to thank the Allied Organization for Civil Rights for hosting this commemorative march, and the Kentucky Commission on Human Rights for taking the lead in planning it, and both organizations for keeping these issues at the forefront. Now, before you leave Frankfort today, we hope you will take in the additional events surrounding this march, including a civil rights exhibit right over here at the Governor's Mansion. And each and every one of you are invited to come over
and visit that governor's mansion because it's your home. It's your home. I want to wish all of you a memorable and inspiring day. And may we collectively do everything we can to indeed lift every voice and vote. Thank you very much.
Okay, it's kind of hard. It's kind of tight. Get up and down, up and down.
Thank you, Governor. We're going to ask that the 12th U.S. Colored Heavy Artillery Unit please come forward to assist us in this next part of the program. Okay, I'm sorry. This is going to be two parts of the program. First, I'm going to introduce the next speaker, the person of Senator Georgia M. Powers. Senator Powers was on the staff 50 years ago when the original march on Frankfort was planned. I had the privilege of serving as her first campaign manager and watched her develop as a senator and as a statesperson, and watched with amazement the accomplishments that she made in the Kentucky Senate. We're going to do several things at this point. First, we're going to ask those who participated in the march 50 years ago. If you're sitting, would you stand? If you're standing, would you wave your hand? Okay. Amen. To each of you. Thank you for being here then and for being here today. Many of our civil rights pioneers who worked on the March on Frankfort 50 years ago have passed, and we want to honor them by placing a wreath in front of the podium. And we're going to ask Senator Powers and the 12th U.S. Colored Artillery Unit to come forward and assist her as the wreath is placed in front. You want to move down? You gonna go down?
58 now.
Whatever they had back then.
Senator Powers.
Good afternoon, fighters of equality.
Good afternoon.
I want to thank each and every one of you for being here this day. I want you to know this is a great day. It's a beautiful day, very unlike the day 50 years ago when it was sleeting and snowing and raining all the same time. So God's been good to us today. I'm glad to hear the governor speak of the things he spoke of. You know, I found that this governor has had a lot of courage. He has put Kentucky on the map nationally with health care. And we thank you, Governor. This is my opportunity to thank all the fighters of equality for the many years of progress we have made, yet there's much more to be done. I remember as if it were yesterday, the many who led the AOCR, Allied Organizations for Civil Rights, in the 1964, supporting the Public Accommodations Bill in the House of Representatives. Frank Stanley Jr., the dynamic and energetic editor of the Louisville Defender newspaper. Dr. Olaf Anderson, who was co-chairman of AOCR. Eric Tackow, the treasurer. Lucretia Ward, a member of the board. Reverend K. L. Moore from here in Frankfort, who organized the Bluegrass region. Joe Graves, who's here with us today. Co-chairman of Lexington Kentuckians for Public Accommodations, Martha Cochran as secretary, and I was the office manager.
Thank you for your service.
You're welcome. It is a blessing for me to be able to celebrate 50 years of progress with more to be done. Our efforts are not complete.
That's right.
I will speak on several segments, the past, the now, and the future. In 1963, the Kentucky Commission on Human Rights drafted a bill on public accommodations to be presented in 1964. When it was apparent that the bill would fail, Stanley organized with some of the rest of us, AOCR. Dr. Martin Luther King warmed the crowd with his speech, eloquently verbalizing the inane injustice of being denied a hotel room or a decent meal because of the color of one's skin. The crowd of more than 10,000 clamored for more and more from him. Jackie Robinson spoke passionately about the discrimination he faced as the first black Major League Baseball player. The Public Accommodations Bill failed in 1964, but was enacted into law in 1966 as the Kentucky Civil Rights Act. The now is about House Bill 70, which gives voting rights to felons who have served their time and paid their restitution. House Bill 70 has passed in the House under the leadership of Jesse Crenshaw, Darrell Owens, and others. The 2014 session, which is in order now, passed it again. The Senate committee had the opportunity to vote it favorably, but they messed up and voted a substitute that needs to be killed. We want House Bill 70 passed in the Senate as it was and not the substitute. It is now time for the activists of yesteryear to pass the torch of equality to the present and future generation. They not only have to maintain what has been done in the past, but must be diligent about nuances that are often being carried out in private and public. The enemies, I call them, of equality are alive and well, thinking and dreaming ways to deter minorities from voting all over the country. There are felons in every family in Kentucky. Everybody's got a felon member somewhere. I suggest to you today, felons, all those who are felons, I suggest to you that you organize your family members who vote to kick the rascals out who are the enemies of equality. When you organize, you will see a change in attitudes and votes. We need House Bill 70 to become law as it is written. God bless all of you and have a safe trip home.
You need probably to take it down one more, if you can. Or take it all the way down to the bottom. Let's thank them.
Back we go to the steps.
In planning the program and working on what we thought would be appropriate, we tried to keep the program as close to what was done 50 years as we could. But we had to add an additional aspect. Kentucky has a poet laureate in the person of Mr. Frank X. Walker. And we have talked, and he asked to participate in this event. And we were so proud to honor his request. So it's my pleasure to present to you not only Kentucky's Poet Laureate, but the recent recipient from the National NAACP's Image Award, Mr. Frank X. Walker.
My mother would insist that be correct. I was asked to participate. Short poem. Who is the real criminal? It's hard to believe that there was a time in America when a man could be sentenced to a chain gang for selling farm produce within the city limits. That a black woman could be sentenced to hard labor for using abusive language towards a white man. It makes no sense, but there were no paying jobs after emancipation. And since it was a crime to be unemployed, newly freed men and women, or vagrants, were arrested, fined and sentenced to months and years of hard labor on chain gangs and in prison farms to work off their fines, with additional time tacked on to pay for their own upkeep. If we understand that the modern prison industrial complex was reinvented in the South by capitalists, elitists, and unreconstructed Southerners as a means to continue to provide uncompensated labor after the abolition of such, then we understand that slavery as an institution and as an idea never really ended. Redemption and forgiveness and the concept of paid in full should not be a privilege reserved for only the perfect few who never, ever make mistakes. If a man or a woman commits a crime, then serves their time, we should treat them like the returning citizens that they are. Not penalize them for their race, color, or previous condition of servitude. And if anyone would still insist on denying them that privilege, a right guaranteed by the 15th Amendment, then who is the real criminal? Thank you.
Our next presenter is the principal or the sponsor of HB 70. He is the representative from the 77th District in Lexington. It's indeed a privilege and an honor to welcome to the podium Mr. Jesse Crenshaw.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have been trying for some weeks now to be able to come to grips with what would be appropriate as my comments today. I come to you as a person who has worked on House Bill 70 for 10 years and worked to help ex-offenders obtain their rights to vote since 1996. In 1996, as a member of the NAACP, prior to becoming a legislator, I was asked to see what I could do to help ex-offenders have their rights to vote restored. I sponsored a bill, House Bill 281, that required the Department of Corrections to assist ex-offenders in their applications to get their rights to vote restored. And that bill became law, and the Department of Corrections is required to assist ex-offenders apply for restoration of their rights to vote. There came a point when we saw that more was needed, and that is that ex-offenders have their rights to vote restored automatically. Approximately 180,000, depending on one report, the League of Women Voters study, I believe, is where those numbers come from. And there's another figure that sometimes is considered of 243,000 people. Either number qualifies you for one of the largest, after Jefferson, after Louisville and Lexington, as one of the largest cities if you put all those people together. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard Mr. Walker make reference to the 15th Amendment. I want to say to you, ladies and gentlemen, that the right to vote is a sacred right. It is not a privilege like driving a car. It is a sacred right. And I want you to think of all those persons who have given their lives so that we can vote. If you think of Medgar Evers, whose only thing that he was doing was helping register people to vote. If you think of Goodman, Swerner, and Cheney, those young boys who were murdered because they were trying to help people to vote. The theme today is lift every voice and vote. I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, to lift every voice and contact every member of the Senate and ask them to help restore House Bill 70 to House Bill 70. I want you to realize, as I had to explain to a lady after the vote in the Senate, the lady said to me, I was stunned that the bill, the amendment passed the Senate by so many senators, 34-4. Ladies and gentlemen, I have to help you understand that that was not a vote for the committee, the Senate committee substitute. Many of those senators were voting for it so that it could get to a conference committee, so that it could get to a possible free conference committee. And as I explained to her when she was singling out two particular senators that she wished had not voted for it, and I explained to her that they voted for it not because of the fact that they wanted the committee substitute to be enacted, but because they wanted House Bill 70 to be given a chance in the Senate to be changed. In the House of Representatives, you're going to find my colleague, Representative Jeff Hoover, has voted for House Bill 70 time after time. He's a co-sponsor of the bill. And ladies and gentlemen, I want you to understand that this year, among many years, House Bill 70 passed the House 82-12. 82-12. With bipartisan support from both parties. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to lift your voice and contact every member of the Senate and ask them that if House Bill 70 gets to a conference committee, that the original bill be restored. The original bill is to make it automatic for ex-offenders to get their rights restored. The Senate committee substitute is not House Bill 70. Every provision of the committee substitute starts with a phrase that explains why you should not have your rights to vote restored. We must change that, ladies and gentlemen. We must change that. Now, I want you to know two things before I close. Well, more than two, I'm sorry. We are not a monarch. This country is not a monarch. There is not a king or queen that rules. This country is not a dictatorship where one person rules by force or threat of force. This country is not an oligarchy where there are just a few that runs the government. This country is a democracy. We govern ourselves, and the process in which we govern ourselves is based on the ability to vote. to vote for who our governor is, who our president is, to vote for who our representatives and our senators are. We govern ourselves. We govern ourselves. And it is only fair if we asked ex-offenders to work hard, be good citizens, pay taxes. As Mr. Cunningham said during the committee discussion, if you're not going to let us have full rights, then don't tax us. Don't tax ex-offenders. We fought a small war over taxation without representation. Ladies and gentlemen, we govern ourselves, of the people, by the people, and for the people. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you to please contact every senator. Ask them to be sure that House Bill 70 is restored as House Bill 70. Thank you all very much.
We're now going to bring to the podium the principal co-sponsor of House Bill 70. He is the minority floor leader, and as Representative Crenshaw said, House Bill 70 passed the House with bipartisan support. And it is in that spirit, and it is with gratitude and an honor to introduce Representative Jeff Hoover, who is the minority floor leader of the House of Representatives.
Governor Beshear, Senator Powers, and other legislative colleagues and all of our guests, thank you first of all for being here today. I'm honored to be here and participate and help celebrate and commemorate the 50th anniversary of the historic Civil Rights March here in Frankfort, and to advocate for passage of House Bill 70. Thank you to the Kentucky Commission on Human Rights, the Allied Organization for Civil Rights, the Kentucky chapter of the NAACP, and all the other organizations who have worked so hard, have come together today to celebrate and to recognize the historic event which took place here on these very steps 50 years ago today. And thank you, Raul Cunningham, for asking me to speak here and be a part of the program. For me, House Bill 70 is not a political issue, and this is not a political event. We are all here today as Kentuckians for a common purpose, not only to commemorate the historic event that took place 50 years ago today, but to show our support for the restoration of voting rights for those persons who have paid their debt to society. For the past several years, I have always proudly voted for House Bill 70. And I want to thank my friend, Representative Jesse Crenshaw, for his commitment, for his dedication, and for his perseverance on this issue. It is a model example for all of us to follow when we're committed to an issue. Jesse, thank you so much for all of your hard work. This year I was honored to sign with Representative Crenshaw as the primary co-sponsor of House Bill 70. I've always thought that House Bill 70 was simply the right thing to do. When a person has finished his or her obligation to the Commonwealth through the courts when he or she has completed their sentence and they've completed the punishment according to what we as members of the General Assembly determine to be the appropriate punishment, his or her rights, except in the most heinous of crimes, should be restored, including the right to vote. It, for me, is simply the right thing to do. Now, some may and some do disagree with my opinion and with my viewpoint on this legislation. But my view on House Bill 70 is tied to my belief in the Christian tenet of forgiveness. I am thankful today that we can stand here and that we serve an almighty God who is forgiving. And I'm thankful that we live in a society which is by and large a forgiving society. We have moved this issue further this year than ever before, but we're not finished. And I pledge to you to do everything that I can do as the Republican floor leader in the House of Representatives to make House Bill 70 become law this year. Being fair and doing the right thing is good public policy. And in my opinion, House Bill 70, restoring voting rights to persons who have paid their debt to society, is the right thing to do. Thank you all very much for being here.
Thanks a lot, Representative Hoover. It is at this point in the program that I have been asked to introduce guests and special persons. We'd be here another 50 years if I introduced everybody on this platform individually. There are several that I will. We've heard the names and we have seen some signs of Governor Bert T. Combs. We're very glad to have his widow in the person of Judge Sarah Combs. Judge Combs. You've heard the name Edward T. Breathitt. We're very, very glad to have his daughter, Linda Breathitt. We're going to ask if the constitutional officers will stand. I see the Lieutenant Governor, Jerry Abramson, the Attorney General, Jack Conway, the Treasurer, Todd Hollenbach. There's one up, she will be introduced at a later time. The Governor's Executive Cabinet, if they will stand. When we came 50 years ago, there was one African American member in the House of Representatives. Today, there are 8. And I'm going to ask Senator Gerald Neal, Senator Reginald Thomas, Representative Darrell Owens, Representative Jim Glenn, if y'all will stand, Representative Reggie Meeks, Representative Jesse Crenshaw, Representative Derek Graham. Have I gotten to 8? Oh, I'm sorry, Representative Simpson from Northern Kentucky. Thank you so very much. At this time, we're going to ask Ms. Pat Masterson to please come forward and play with a solo.
Thank you.
All the stories I was told in Sunday school, the golden rule, yes, Jesus loves me. But I didn't understand that God would always hold my hand, no matter where I chose to go or what I chose to do. Now that I know Him for myself, and He has claimed me as His own, how I long to be in His presence as He sits upon the throne. In every sunrise, I can feel Him in every wind that blows. I see Jesus in every raindrop that falls. I see Him He's
Now, Reverend Elliott, if we were in church instead of being outside, we would be out. There are some more introductions that I should make, and I'm going to ask every member of the legislature if you would please stand so we can recognize you. I saw Governor Carroll here and the Speaker of the House, Representative Stumbo. We appreciate all of your hard work and support. I'm going to ask also the 63 representatives of the organizations, of those persons representing allied organizations of civil rights. If those organizations will please stand. They're representatives. Wherever they are. And we're going to ask the members of the Kentucky Commission on Human Rights if they would please stand. I know we have several university presidents on the platform, and I'm going to ask if they will please stand. Thank you. The next presenter is to tell his personal story. We are here to support HB 70. And this person will exemplify one of the persons who has been convicted of a felony. And we ask him to come and tell his personal story as to why his rights should be restored to him. And if Mr. Michael Heiser will please come forward.
My name is Michael Heiser. I'm an American, a Kentuckian. I'm a father. I'm a teacher. Jefferson Community Technical College. Dang right I did. The Lord is good. Got out of prison 7 years ago, and since then I've earned an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, in my master's program for licensed marriage and family therapy. But I'm not a citizen of Kentucky. I'm a citizen in transition. I have half of my rights. I have the right to pay taxes. Every check I've ever sent to the IRS, they have cashed. They have not returned one of them and said, you are not a citizen. So they agree that I'm a citizen. But I can't vote. And part of being a citizen is to participate in democracy. Now we can say all kinds of things about the people up here. They're wonderful people who have took on a fight far bigger than them and managed to overcome it several times. Thank you, Jesse Crenshaw, for all of your hard work. Before I was committing felonies, you were fighting for me. Thank you. The disease, though, is still alive in our democracy, and it hides in corners of add-on bills and substitute bills. It hides where they say that hey, we're passing your bill, Mike, you should be happy. But adding a multiple felon in there, a rule that says anybody with more than one felon can't, it doesn't apply to them. Well, out of the 180,000, they're giving a real conservative estimate of 100,000 will be exempt. This is about you, the Kentuckians, the feet of liberty, who marched up that street to demand liberty. And it's time for Kentucky to come out of the 1800s, to come out of the 1950s into the 2014, into a time where all men stand together in unity to have a land of liberty, a place where a man is forgiven after he's paid his debt. After all the fines are paid, after you've served your sentence, how dare they add on 5 more years? That's what parole was for. Don't reinvent the wheel. They already put something in the system to fix that. If you commit a crime on your parole, you go back to prison. You don't get your rights back. It's that simple. After you've completed everything that you're supposed to do, as I have, got custody of my children, as a father should, as a man should, to be the head and not the tail, to be a leader and not a follower, to stand up for his rights in his community. But I can't hold public office. Not that I'd want to. God bless you. I can't take it. But I just want to be part of the community. I was part of the problem. House Bill 70, in its original form, brings me into part of the solution. Now, I stand with the Kentuckians for the Commonwealth because it's for the common good. I stand. Wow.
Satan is alive. Can you hear me?
Well, I'll shout. Satan is a liar. He ain't stopping this. I've been held back too long. They're hiding in corners where they write bills to make sure that people can't vote. And they say that they're doing us a favor. Well, stop doing me favors. Let me do my own favor. Let me be a citizen. Mission Behind Bars and Beyond is a program that I sit with as well that goes into the prisons, teaches civics, teaches how to get a job. And then when you come out, they go with you for a year. They come meet with you every week. Different things like that. If we don't deal with convicted felons now, then we're only pushing them away. And as we push them away, they get resentful because they're not part of us. I want to be part of us. One thing I'll leave you with before I go is I don't want Kentucky to be remembered for a place that you can commit a felony, that you can go to prison, but if you want to do good, you'll have to move. I don't want Kentucky to be remembered for that. I want Kentucky to be on that long list of first. But we're third right now. The last 3 states that won't come along and come out of archaic times into democracy. We need to stand together. Not only call the senators, Write them. Show up. Lobby for it. This is your freedom that they'll attack next. And it has to be today that we stand together. That I don't be judged by the content of my character in the past, but I be judged for the content of my character today as a citizen of Kentucky. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Heiser. Our next speaker, a member of the Kentucky Senate, elected from the 33rd District, was a participant in the march 50 years ago. He didn't want to sit down there with the seniors. He has been leading the fight over in the Senate, among other issues. He is a life member of the NAACP and a stalwart for civil rights. It's my pleasure to bring to the podium the Honorable Gerald Neal, Senator.
Thank you. Hello, Governor. I see the Speaker of the House is here. Is the President of the Senate here? Okay.
He's trying to kill that bill.
First of all, I want to say hello to everyone. You know, I take this march personally. I pointed out to a number of my friends and did not realize till yesterday that not only was I here, but my sister, Beverly, who was at Kentucky State University at the time, was here. My brother, Sterling, who was a student at Kentucky State University as well, was here. And my oldest sister, who did not go to Kentucky State University with us, made a trip here on her way to Montana to get married so that she would be present in 1964 at the March on Frankfort. So I take this personal, and I've had flashbacks when I think about what happened. Yes, that day was wet and cold and all that stuff, but you know, I didn't even remember that then. I can't hardly remember that now, because then there was the joy and the urgency of the moment. The people that came in front of this Capitol came here for a purpose, and they were not going to be denied. So what I want to say here today is this. It is clear that we have come far. We have. Gone are the laws of segregation. Gone are the bullwhips of official oppression. Gone are the posted signs of segregation or separation. Yet we have a long way to go. We have a long way to go. And those who do not see that and those who do not acknowledge that are among the deniers. The people that live in their own cocoon, satisfied with where they are, but not concerned or insensitive to the needs of their fellow citizens. Still, there are the persistent structures of racism. Still, there are the closed doors of opportunity. Still, there is still the soft touch and cold reality of racial bigotry. And that includes all bigotry. Did you hear me? All bigotry. So it is with a sense of joy and a sense of urgency that we commemorate the relentless, determined push for equality in 1964, recognizing that the struggle continues today. So like many of us, in those days when we came here, we were very hopeful. We knew that we were part of history. There was a sense of determination in the crowd. Like I said, it is something that I would never forget. It was an exciting time, but also a frightening time. The struggle continues. House Bill 70 is part of that struggle. The effort to eliminate the irrational, the crippling, the damaging effects of a constitutional provision that speaks to the past but reverberates unjustly in the present. I salute my colleague Jesse Crenshaw. He does not know how much I appreciate him and how many that he doesn't know appreciates his efforts over the past 10 years. I salute my friend, the floor leader, the minority floor leader of the Republican Party, Jeff Hoover. I salute him for standing with Jesse Crenshaw in a bipartisan fashion to do what is right and not merely what is convenient. But you know what? I also salute the head of the House of Representatives, who has always been there, opening the door along with the rest of the leadership for that bill to come to the floor, listening to what Jesse Crenshaw was saying. Because without the leadership opening that door, it's not coming to that floor. Without the leadership, you're going to get committee substitutes that you don't want. And I'm here to say to you, and I'm glad, Jesse, that you made it very clear, that the committee substitute that is now in committee, that's been passed over, or will be in committee hopefully, is not what we can tolerate. It guts the bill. It undoes the work that Jesse Crenshaw has been doing for the past 10 years and more. All of you, all of those that are seated here, must recognize that you are actually part of the end of the story that's going to be told here. Because right here today, I'm going to invite you all to the Senate. I'm going to invite you to where I live. I live in the Senate. I live with a Senate that would not even call a similar bill to the floor in a number of years. I live in a Senate that has been resistant and recalcitrant. And even hearing the bill, or even thinking about it, or even talking about it. But guess what? It came out of the Senate this time. It came out of the Senate this time, so it has a chance. And what Representative Crenshaw was talking about, it being in conference and committee, is crucial. And you have a role. I am inviting you not just to write, not just to call. I'm inviting you today to come to the Senate. Come to the Senate today. Join me in the Senate today at 2 p.m. And before you get there, go in the halls of the Capitol Annex and talk to every senator that you can find and tell them what you know is right and what they know in their heart is right. And show them that they have the support and the encouragement to do the right thing so that we can get that bill back to where it should be. And that is a clean bill, an automatic restoration of the rights of those who have been convicted of a felony. So, the question is, how many of you are going to join me? How many of you are going to join me? Can I expect to see you today in the Senate? Come to the third floor of the Capitol. Think about it. This is your House. This is your Senate. This is your government. And you are here. This is your capital. You will make the difference. And not let today be the last day, but until this bill is passed clean. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator. Our next speaker has been invited and she graciously accepted as our Secretary of State. The Secretary of State is the highest election official in the state. And we wanted and invited her participation because when we pass HB 70 and when the public passes the referendum, the Secretary of State will have to help administer the bill. And we wanted her to come and be with us. She's here as Secretary of State for the benefit especially of the media, not as a candidate.
We're going to retire this though.
It's my pleasure and a privilege to introduce and bring to the podium the 76th Secretary of State for the Commonwealth of Kentucky, Allison London Brown.
Thank you very much. Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon. It is truly an honor and a privilege to join each of you here today as we pay tribute to the life, the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and so many like Georgia Powers, thousands of Kentuckians that joined him right here on these steps 50 years ago to fight against and end the long night of racial injustice facing not just Kentucky, but the entire United States. Martin Luther King said, "If I do not possess the right to vote, I don't possess myself." Indeed, I cannot make up my mind. As we heard from Michael, it's made up for me. I cannot observe the laws as a democratic citizen, yet I rather submit to the edict of others that are determined for me. I'm here today as Secretary of State, your chief election official, and I want you to imagine with me traveling thousands of miles over to the Middle East to greet and to thank our soldiers, our sailors, our airmen, our Marine, our National Guard and Coast Guard, who on behalf of Kentucky, they put that uniform on not as a Democrat or a Republican, but as a Kentuckian, as an American first. As I thank them for their selfless service and sacrifice that we honor here today, over and over and over again, the one question that I got asked, that still rings in my ears and in my heart, and that we work to end each and every day in the office of Secretary of State, is, Secretary, does my vote actually count? This is a question that is echoed not just in the Middle East by our soldiers and sailors and airmen and Marine and National Guard, but as you heard here today, by so many that are still fighting for that very right, with the help of people like Darrell Owens and the House of Representatives, who chairs the Elections Committee. We have come far to make sure that we end that question, passing Kentucky's first ever Military Heroes Initiative that says to those that are on the battlefield that your voice matters back here at the ballot box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have come far with the help of so many legislators that are here in passing the first ever address confidentiality program that the state of Kentucky has ever seen, helping to make sure those victims of domestic violence can go exercise their right to vote, register to vote, without fear of harm that that person they stood across from in the courtroom will be able to find them or their loved ones. We have fought against the continued propaganda that those that find themselves on hard times and residing on a park bench don't deserve to vote. Whether it's a park bench or a park plaza, all eligible Kentuckians deserve to have their voice heard in the ballot box. But as you just heard from Senator Gerald Neal, we have far to go. The march that we celebrate that occurred here 50 years ago today continues on. Indeed, the march continues on in the faces of each and every one of you that are here today so that we can increase the minimum wage. I refuse to believe, especially from those that have an estimated net worth of $25 million, that somehow increasing the minimum wage from $7.25 an hour to $10.10 an hour will hurt our economy. It's not a minimum wage, it's a living wage, and each and every Kentuckian needs and deserves that. Our march continues on for the strong Kentucky women that I know are here today to make sure we close the pay equity gap that we see. 79 cents on every dollar is not acceptable, and to me it's not a woman's issue, it's a family's issue that we will march together on. Our march continues on for the thousands of veterans that we have here in this state that have fought for that right we exercise on Election Day, as those leaders in Washington, D.C. allow good acts like the Vow to Hire Heroes Act, which gives our men and women in uniform a fighting chance when they come back from serving our country, the ability to find a job. When they let that lapse, our fight continues, our march continues to move ahead. And as I look out and I see my sisters and brothers in organized labor, our fight continues to make sure those that have lifted millions out of poverty continue to have the ability to collectively bargain and earn a prevailing wage. Dr. King said that when we march, we don't march alone. We march together. And most importantly, we march forward and we don't turn back. I'm not turning back, and I don't think you will either. Our march continues on, and it is going to be up to each and every one of us to send the message that our elections here in Kentucky are not auctions left up to the highest bidder. We are not up for sale, and our voices matter. They did 50 years ago, they will today. Our march moves forward. Together we will move this state in the right direction, from the Frankfort capital to the capital in Washington, D.C. Thank you all very, very much.
About 3 months ago. No. John Johnson, and I think we shall overcome. Go toward the bottom.
When we were planning, beginning to think about the 50th year anniversary of the March on Washington. I'm sorry, March on Frankfort. We realized that it was on the train coming from the March on Washington that they began to plan for a March on Frankfort. And as organizations began to talk, we realized that there was one person in Kentucky who could chair the organization and head up the planning committee for the March on Frankfort. And that individual has been back several years and has served admirably as the executive director of the Kentucky Commission on Human Rights. And he has done one fantastic job in pulling us all together as we celebrate, commemorate, and advocate today. And that person is our next speaker, Mr. John Johnson.
Thank you all so much. Let me join with others in saying welcome. Welcome to your state capital. Thank you for coming. We're particularly proud to see so many young people here, and I know many of them had to leave to go back. These young people will lead our cities in the future. They will lead this fine commonwealth, and they will lead this great nation. We thank the many organizations and volunteers across the state who collaborated as we pulled together the Allied Organizations for Civil Rights. It was because of your work we were able to orchestrate this event and make the 50th anniversary march on Frankfort a reality. Won't you give yourselves a round of applause? Now I know that many of you, like me, woke up this morning, Reverend, with your mind stayed on freedom. Many of you left home early this morning before the rooster crowed and traveled across this state to raise your voices in unison for the great cause of justice and to have your presence felt in Frankfort, our state seat of power. So again, I say welcome to your state capital. Welcome to your place in history. Welcome to the ever-continuing struggle for civil rights in this nation. And yes, welcome to the 50th anniversary of the '64 March on Frankfort. We stand, my friends, we stand on ground made hallowed by the love and passion of those torch bearers who came before us. Today we honor and thank the thousands of Kentuckians of all races and walks of life who marched up this long hill on a cold, wet morning, Jerry, back in 1964. The '64, those torchbearers marched to urge an end to legal segregation in public accommodations and to demand an end to the backward, shameful mistreatment of human beings that legal segregation presented to the world. Every step in that march helped widen the path of opportunity, not just for African Americans, but for women, for people with disabilities, for immigrants, for all of the left out and locked out men, women, and children of this state. The '64 event became one of several benchmarks that challenged the character of our nation and contributed to the passage of the U.S. Civil Rights Act of '64. The march spurred the passage of the Kentucky Civil Rights Act in '66. Like many of you, I recall the experience of the chains of oppression, of segregation and inequality that existed before the passage of legislation for public accommodation. Today's multiracial experience is a testimony, Reverend, of making a way out of no way. And I'm thankful that I've seen the chains fall. Because they marched, my friends, I no longer have to go to the back door of a restaurant just to buy a hamburger. Because they marched, I no longer have to go through the alley, up the fire escape, to sit in the buzzard's nest of a movie theater because whites only sit on the ground floor. Because they marched, I don't have to get off the sidewalk because a white woman is coming down the sidewalk and I have to get off and make sure there's no question. Sometimes, Jerry, I look back and wonder how we got over. Because they marched, I no longer feel inferior by being confronted with white-only water fountains and white-only restrooms, because they marched. If there had been no 64 march on Frankfort, it is not likely that the Kentucky would have the distinction of being the first southern state to adopt a state civil rights law. Today, we march both in memory and in honor of those brave, morally committed people who stood in the gap to promote equality 50 years ago, and many who still provide a bridge for us to continue to cross over to the promised land. As we look back at history of yesterday, we march forward today with passion and a deep commitment to address the issues of the underserved, the downtrodden, the destitute residents of our state. Today's march brings promise and hope for all of the citizens of our great state. We call on all of you who inherit this legacy of history to embrace the call of action, to join Jerry in the Senate this afternoon, to form a coalition of conscience that includes Kentuckians of all economic backgrounds, all races, all ages, all genders, all sexual orientation, all people in this state who believe in equality. We ask you to join in this coalition. We gather today by the thousands as the Allied Organization for Civil Rights, not only to celebrate the incredible moment in history, but to strongly urge the end of disenfranchisement of Kentuckians who are not allowed to exercise their very basic American right to vote. You've heard all of these speakers here today. There's no need for me to repeat all of that. These are Kentuckians who've paid their debts to society, and they should be allowed the right to vote. Let me just share with you 2 or 3 real quick statistics. You've heard the story. 1 out of 17 of the residents of our state are affected by Kentucky's outdated disenfranchisement laws. Kentucky has the highest African-American disenfranchisement rate in the nation. We want to be known for good things, not for something like that. Nationally, 1 out of every 12 black folk in this nation cannot vote because of these laws. In Kentucky, it is 1 out of every 4 citizens that cannot vote. Something's wrong with that figure, my friends. We don't want those statistics for Kentucky. In Kentucky, approximately, as I said, 1 out of every 4 African Americans are disenfranchised. Kentucky is one of only 3 states that do that. We need to change this in our state. We urge you to support the Allied Organizations for Civil Rights in asking our state to join the other 47 who restore people's rights to vote. Kentucky made history by being the first state to pass a state civil rights bill in the South. That's something that makes us proud. We like being on the right side of history. When history is Googled by generations in the future, we don't want them to see that Kentucky was the last state to restore to 1 of its 17 citizens the right to vote. To deny the right to vote is a slight to society. It's a slight to the rights of equality, and it's a slight to the promise of America. As a coalition of conscience, we must protect and support the least of these in our society. My friends, we need to join forces to address issues that impact the positive development and growth of all the citizens of our state. We must elect officials. Be mindful of this. Don't be snowed. We must elect officials who support public and private initiatives that seek to move our state and our nation in a positive direction for true equality for all of our citizens. Again, we thank you for joining us today. We gather to make a difference to ensure a better world for all Kentuckians. We urge you to continue to fight the good fight, to keep the faith, and to finish the course. Oh, everybody up here can tell you something that Martin King said, so let me just tell you in close. Martin King reminded us on his last visit here that evil only succeeds when good people do nothing. And so all of you are good people. The people, the young folk who had to leave are all good people. You represent the good people of the Commonwealth. So the first thing we want to ask you good people to do today, as you leave this gathering, is to immediately go to the state senate, to your state senate, to lobby your state senators and to encourage them to do the right thing by voting for House Bill 70 without any strings attached. My friends, we urge you to keep your eyes on the prize of equality for Kentucky, to keep your hands on the plow of justice throughout the Commonwealth. Yes, there's power in the cause of freedom. I hear the army rising in Kentucky to break every chain. Public accommodations then, voter registration now. History is still in the making, my friends. Hold on. Don't you get weary. There's a great getting up morning, and this has been a great getting up morning. We in Kentucky will go on to break every chain. The great cause of equality is with us. Thank you so much for joining us today. As we prepare to end, we're going to ask that you maintain where you are for several moments, please, as we ask the military to please come forward and retire the colors. And we're going to have to ask the marshals if you will clear a path so they can get through with the colors.
No, I think it was a sneaky. John, you want the screamers in my front? Oh, yeah. Oh. Oh.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're now going to ask Mr. Seth Case and students from the Carter G. Woodson Academy in Lexington to come forward. And we're going to ask that you do as we did. And if you don't know how to sing, you shall overcome.
Okay. I can't go across. I'm not going across.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I someday. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we'll walk hand in hand someday. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall live in peace someday. The truth shall make us free. The truth shall make us free. The truth shall make us free someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe the truth shall make us free today. We are not afraid. We are not afraid. We are not afraid today. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we are not afraid today.
Now listen, I want all of y'all to go with me to, I want us to go to Senator Neal. Senator Neal, all that came with me, that's why we're going on this third floor. Senator Neal, okay?
Let me, before we leave, there is another, wait a minute people, please. Please. We are going to go and to the Senate chamber starts. The Senate will take place, will convene at 3 o'clock. The Senate will convene, I'm sorry, the Senate at 2 o'clock. Senate at 2 o'clock, the House of Representatives will convene at 3 o'clock. Please, let's go and express your opinion. And if you will, maintain your place while the benediction, Reverend, is being given by the Reverend Dr. Marion Taylor, Executive Director of the Council of Churches. Dr. Taylor.
Thank you. I can see it in your precious faces that you're feeling it too. The pleasure, the privilege, the hope, the promise of being here today together. Are you feeling it? Feeling it. Our brother Thomas Merton was certain that his desire to please God did in fact please God. And here today, there has been a desire to please God, the author of Compassion and Justice. And so we receive God's benediction. And also this charge to serve that was written by Professor Hal Warheim. Because the world is poor and starving, go with bread. Because the world is filled with fear, go with courage. Because the world is in despair, go with hope. Because the world is living lies, go with truth. Because the world is sick with sorrow, go with joy. Because the world is weary of wars, go with peace. Because the world is seldom fair, go with justice. Because the world is under judgment, go with mercy. And because the world will die without it, go with love. May I hear the people say amen. Amen. Go in peace.